What happens when a legendary singer, someone who built her career on grace, professionalism, and decades of unshakable poise, finally reaches her breaking point on live television? It takes only 28 seconds. Just one dismissive comment, one careless wave of the hand, to shatter years of mutual respect and trigger one of the most unforgettable walkouts in daytime TV history. Petula Clark sits across from Lorraine Kelly in a studio washed in soft morning light. The cameras are rolling, the audience is attentive, and everything appears completely routine. Petula has arrived to talk about her extraordinary career, her upcoming projects, and the music that has shaped generations. It should have been a tribute, a celebration, a moment of warmth and reflection. Instead, it becomes the opposite. Something sharp, something bruising, something no one in the studio will ever forget. Lorraine opens the interview with her usual bright smile. "Petula, welcome to the show," she says as the audience applauds. Petula returns the smile, elegant, composed, effortlessly dignified. She has sat in this chair and chairs like it for more than half a century. Interviews do not intimidate her, they are simply part of a life lived on stage. But within minutes, something feels off. A subtle shift, a tone, a casual disrespect tucked inside seemingly harmless questions. "So, Petula," Lorraine begins, leaning back as if chatting with an old acquaintance she barely respects. "You've been around for quite a long time now, haven't you?" Petula's smile tightens. It is the kind of remark seasoned interviewees know how to absorb without flinching. She nods politely. "Yes, I've been fortunate to have a long career." But Lorraine continues, unfazed. "You must have seen everything come and go. All these young stars today must look so different to you, don't they?" Petula shifts slightly. "Every generation has its own voice," she replies. "That's part of the beauty of music." Lorraine is already flipping through her notes. "Downtown. That was your big hit, wasn't it?" "What was that?" 60 years ago." Petula corrects with gentle precision. "Quite a while ago, yes. But I'm very proud of it." Lorraine waves her hand dismissively. "But that was really your only major hit, wasn't it?" Things sort of fizzled out afterward. The studio falls quiet. Even the camera operators freeze. Petula's expression changes. The warmth fades. "Actually," she says steadily, "that's not accurate. I had many successful records after Downtown. I Know a Place, My Love, Don't Sleep in the Subway, This Is My Song, 15 consecutive top 40 hits in the United States alone." Lorraine nods vaguely, barely listening. "Well, most people just remember Downtown. That's the one everyone knows. Perhaps in your circles." Petula replies softly, but the edge in her voice is unmistakable. Lorraine either doesn't hear it or chooses not to. She leans forward with a playful grin. "You know what I find interesting? Singers from your era are always doing nostalgia tours now, playing the same old hits. Don't you get tired of singing the same songs?" Petula inhales slowly. Audiences love hearing music that meant something to them. Creating memories isn't a burden, it's a privilege. "But it must feel a bit sad." Lorraine presses, tilting her head with feigned sympathy. "Knowing your best years are behind you, that the music world has moved on." Silence grips the room. "My best years are not behind me," Petula says, each word sharp and controlled. "I am still recording, I am still performing, I am still creating." Lorraine laughs, a small, stinging, dismissive laugh that pushes everything over the edge. "Oh, come on, Petula, let's be honest. Nobody's buying new music from artists your age. People want you to be who you used to be, not who you are now." Petula's eyes flash. "What exactly are you trying to say, Lorraine?" "I'm just being realistic." Lorraine replies with a shrug. "The industry has changed. You had your time. Now it's all about streaming and TikTok and things you probably don't even understand." "I understand plenty," Petula says sharply. "What I don't understand is why you invited me here if you have so little respect for my work." Lorraine lifts her hands in mock innocence. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm not saying you weren't good back in the day. I'm just saying the day has passed." The audience gasps. Petula goes still. Then, with calm precision, she reaches down and unclips her microphone. The click echoes through the studio speakers. "What are you doing?" Lorraine asks, her smile finally slipping. "I'm leaving," Petula says, rising with quiet dignity. "I came here for a conversation, not to be patronized." She sets the microphone on the chair, turns, and walks off the set as the stunned studio watches in absolute silence. "This is you talking down to someone you've decided is irrelevant?" Petula says, her voice steady and resonant enough to fill the entire studio. I won't sit here and be treated that way. The words strike like a gavel. Lorraine's face flushes instantly, a bright, unmistakable red. She glances at her crew, searching for support she doesn't find, then looks back at Petula with disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she snaps. "You're being oversensitive. I was just making conversation." "No," Petula replies, her tone clear and unwavering. "You were being rude." There's a difference. The polished fart-aid Lorraine is known for begins to crack. "I've interviewed hundreds of celebrities," she shoots back. "Nobody has ever walked off my show before." "Then perhaps," Petula says, "nobody has ever been disrespected quite like this before. Or perhaps they had less self-respect than I do." A wave of murmurs ripples through the audience. Shock, sympathy, quiet approval. Every emotion is present. Lorraine scans their faces, trying desperately to regain control. "Petula, please," she says, but there is no softness in her tone. It sounds more like a command. "Sit back down. We can talk about something else." "I don't think so," Petula replies. She turns to leave, but Lorraine's voice chases her. "You do realize how this makes you look, don't you? Walking off like some diva. People will think you can't handle a simple interview." Petula turns back slowly. Her expression is composed, but her eyes are blazing. "Let them think what they want," she says. "I know the truth. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, Lorraine. I've worked with some of the greatest talents in the world. I've performed for presidents and queens. I've earned my respect through decades of hard work and professionalism. I don't need to prove anything to you, or to anyone watching." "Well, that's a lovely speech," Lorraine says, dripping sarcasm. "But you're still walking off my show. That's incredibly unprofessional." "Unprofessional," Petula repeats, and for the first time her voice carries real anger. "You want to talk about unprofessional? You invited me here under the pretense of celebrating my career. Instead, you've spent the entire interview suggesting I'm washed up, irrelevant, and too old to matter. That is unprofessional. That is disrespectful. And frankly, that is cruel." The studio falls dead silent. Even the crew members, those used to chaos, freeze where they stand. Lorraine rises from her chair as well, her jaw tight. "I was trying to have an honest conversation," she argues. "Maybe you're just not used to people being real with you anymore. Maybe everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear." "Honest," Petula repeats, her voice rising. "There's nothing honest about what you've been doing. You've been condescending since the minute I sat down. Every question has been designed to diminish me, to make me feel small, to remind both me and your audience that you think my time has passed." "I'm a journalist?" Lorraine fires back. "I ask the questions people want answered." "No." Petula counters sharply. "You ask the questions that make you feel important. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty, and what you've been doing fits the latter." Lorraine's jaw drops. She clearly did not expect Petula Clark to fight back with this intensity. "I can't believe you're saying this," she sputters. "I've always been fair in my interviews." "Fair?" Petula shakes her head slowly. "You wouldn't know fair if it sat in that chair and sang Downtown for you. You've been dismissive, condescending, and mean-spirited. I've been nothing but polite to you, and you've repaid that with contempt." "This is absurd," Lorraine argues. "You're twisting everything I said." "Oh my," Petula challenges. "Let's review. You started by pointing out how long I've been around, as if longevity were a flaw. You dismissed my entire catalogue of hits, reducing my career to one song. You suggested I'm doing nostalgia tours because I have nothing new to offer. You claimed my best years are behind me. You implied I don't understand modern technology, and you finished by telling me my time has passed." She pauses. "Did I miss anything?" There is nothing but silence. Lorraine opens her mouth, but no words appear. "I thought so," Petula says quietly. "No, if you'll excuse me, I have better places to be than somewhere I'm not valued." She begins to walk away, but Lorraine cannot stop herself. "You're making a huge mistake, Petula. Walking off like this, you'll regret it." Petula stops at the edge of the set and turns for one final time. When she speaks, her voice is calm, measured, and devastating. "The only thing I regret, Lorraine, is not walking off sooner. I've spent my entire career carrying myself with grace and professionalism, even in difficult circumstances. I've faced criticism, challenges, and changes in the industry that would have broken lesser artists. But I have never, ever, allowed anyone to treat me with such blatant disrespect. And I'm not going to start now. So that's it? Lorraine whispers. You're just going to leave? Yes, Petula says simply. And she does. I am, Petula says firmly, because I value myself too much to stay somewhere I'm being treated like yesterday's news. And if you had any respect for the people you interview, you would understand that. With those final words, Petula Clark walks off the set. The camera, almost as if stunned, follows her for a moment as she moves through the backstage corridor, her head held high, shoulders squared, posture elegant and unwavering. She does not look back. She does not hesitate. She simply leaves. Back on the set, Lorraine stands rooted in place, suddenly alone beneath the bright, unforgiving studio lights. Her audience stares at her in stunned silence. Her crew stands frozen, waiting for direction. The cameras are still rolling. Lorraine opens her mouth once, then again, searching for something, anything to say, but no words arrive. Finally, she turns stiffly toward the camera. Well, she says, her voice trembling ever so slightly, that was unexpected. We'll take a quick break and be right back. But everyone watching knows the damage is done. What should have been a warm, celebratory conversation has unraveled in less than 10 minutes into a catastrophe no producer could have predicted. In the green room, Petula calmly gathers her belongings. Her hands are steady, her face smooth and composed. A young production assistant approaches her nervously, wringing her hands. Miss Clark, she asks hesitantly, is there anything we can do? Can we get you anything? Petula gives her a warm, genuine smile, so different from the fierceness she had just displayed on set. That's very kind of you, dear, but I'm perfectly fine. I just need to leave now. I'm so sorry about what happened. The young woman blurts out, eyes wide with embarrassment. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for saying so. Petula replies gently, resting a comforting hand on the woman's arm. But please don't worry. I've been in this business a very long time. I know how to handle myself. As Petula heads for the exit, word spreads like wildfire throughout the studio. People are whispering, phones are coming out, messages are already being typed. What just happened wasn't simply dramatic, it was extraordinary. Icons like Petula Clark do not storm off television sets, especially not icons known for decades of composure, professionalism, and grace. And that is precisely what makes her walkout so powerful. This wasn't tantrum. This wasn't ego. This wasn't a celebrity being difficult. This was a woman who had been pushed past the point of dignity and chose, instead of enduring it, to stand up and walk away. Back on set, Lorraine tries to regain her composure during the commercial break. Her producers crowd around her, whispering in tense, urgent tones. The audience is buzzing loudly now, murmuring among themselves, processing everything they've just seen. It becomes clear very quickly that the room is not on Lorraine's side. That was cruel. Someone whispers. She didn't deserve that. Good for her for walking out. Why was Lorraine so mean? When the show returns from the break, Lorraine sits at her desk alone. Petula's empty chair sits beside her like an accusation, an unignorable reminder of what just happened. Lorraine clears her throat and looks into the camera. As you saw, she begins, carefully modulating her tone. Or guest, Petula Clark, decided to leave the interview. I want to apologize if anything I said was misunderstood or taken the wrong way. That certainly wasn't my intention. But the apology rings hollow. She is not apologizing for what she said, only for how it was perceived. She is framing Petula's reaction as a misunderstanding, rather than acknowledging the disrespect behind her own questions. The remainder of the show limps along awkwardly. Lorraine tries to transition to other segments, but the energy is gone. Every person in the studio, and likely every viewer at home, is thinking about the moment the interview fell apart. Nothing else matters. The elephant on the set is enormous and unmistakable. Meanwhile, Petula sits quietly in the back seat of a car driving her away from the studio. She gazes out the window, watching the streets drift by in a blur. Her phone buzzes repeatedly in her handbag, but she ignores it. She needs a moment, not to calm down, but to reflect. She thinks about all the interviews she has done over the years. The kind ones, the bland ones, even the challenging ones. But never anything like this. Not the questions themselves, but the attitude behind them. The idea that age diminishes worth, that a long career is something to mock rather than honor. That past success somehow makes you irrelevant in the present. Petula has never demanded special treatment. She has always been gracious, patient, and professional. But there is a line, and today, when Lorraine told her that her time had passed, something clicked. She realized she had a choice: stay and be diminished, or stand up, literally and figuratively, and say, "No, this is not acceptable. I will not participate in this." And she chose the latter. The decision, once made, came easily. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, no flicker of doubt in her eyes. Petula unclipped her microphone with a calm, practiced motion, rose from her chair, and walked off the set. In that simple act, she delivered a message that reverberated far beyond the walls of the studio. You do not have to accept disrespect. You do not have to smile through cruelty. You have the right to say no. You have the right to leave. And most importantly, you have the right to choose yourself. Back on the studio floor, chaos swirled in the wake of her departure. Producers scrambled like people trying to plug holes in a sinking ship, whispering urgently, flipping through papers, gesturing at screens. The social media team watched in dawning horror as clips of the interview, barely minutes old, began exploding online. Audience members were already filing out of the studio, phones raised, furiously typing out the story of what they had just witnessed, as if they could not get the words out fast enough. Meanwhile, Lorraine sat in her dressing room after the show ended, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her expression shifted between anger, confusion, and disbelief. She genuinely did not understand why everyone was reacting as though she had done something wrong. In her mind, she had simply been doing her job, asking questions, being real, stirring things up for the sake of compelling television. But that was the problem, wasn't it? She had become so focused on manufacturing a moment, creating shock, pushing buttons, that she forgot about the person sitting across from her. She forgot that Petula Clark was not a prop, not a relic, not a convenient target. She was a human being, one with feelings, with dignity, with a lifetime of achievements that demanded respect. Lorraine defended her approach by calling it honesty. But cruelty wrapped in the language of honesty is still cruelty. There is no bravery in punching down. There is nothing journalistic about diminishing someone under the guise of a real conversation. The irony was painful. Had she approached Petula with genuine curiosity and respect, she could have had an extraordinary interview. Petula Clark has lived through multiple eras of music, witnessed entire industries evolve, reinvented herself without ever compromising her integrity. She carries wisdom that most people would give anything to hear. But instead of reaching for depth, Lorraine reached for insult. Instead of exploring experience, she prodded at age. Instead of honoring a legacy, she tried to shrink it, and in doing so, she diminished only herself. Respect is not something you can claim. It is something you earn, through humility, through decency, through acknowledging the contributions of those who came before you. Petula had nothing to prove. Her legacy speaks loudly. Her career is etched into music history. Walking out of that studio did not tarnish her reputation. If anything, it strengthened it. Because what viewers will remember is not Lorraine's pointed comments or her attempts at provocation. They will remember Petula Clark standing up, speaking her truth, and walking out with grace. In her car, finally away from the noise, Petula pulled out her phone. Dozens of messages flooded the screen, friends, colleagues, fans all reaching out in support. They had seen what happened. They understood, they were proud. Petula smiled softly and tucked the phone back into her bag. The validation was kind, but unnecessary. She already knew she had made the right choice. Standing up for yourself is never the wrong one, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is public, even when some people will insist you should have stayed quiet. For decades, Petula Clark has carried herself with kindness, professionalism, and grace. She has lifted others up, treated people with respect, and never allowed ego to overshadow humanity. Today, she reminded everyone that grace is not passive. Professionalism does not require enduring disrespect. Kindness does not mean allowing yourself to be diminished. Sometimes the most powerful, most graceful, most dignified response is to walk away. As the car moved farther from the city, Petula felt a sense of peace settle over her. She knew there would be questions, debates, and perhaps even criticism. Some might argue she should have stayed, explained herself, been more patient. But she knew the truth. She had given the interview every chance. She had stayed composed, redirected gently, answered politely. And when it became clear that nothing she said would shift the tone, when it became obvious that the goal was not conversation but humiliation, she made a choice. She chose herself. She chose her dignity. She chose to leave. And that moment, simple, decisive, unforgettable, is what people will remember. Not as a diva's outburst, but as a powerful declaration of self-worth, boundaries, and the refusal to accept anything less than respect. Petula Clark walked onto that set as a legend, an icon whose name carries decades of artistry, accomplishment, and cultural impact. But when she walked off, she became something even greater. She became an example, a reminder. Living proof that you are never too old, never too established, never too deep into your career or your life to stand up for yourself. The interview was planned to run for 30 minutes. It didn't even make it to 10. Yet in those brief minutes, something rare and meaningful unfolded, something that transcended television, entertainment, and the predictable theatrics of talk show drama. A woman, confronted with blatant disrespect, assessed what was being done to her, weighed her dignity against the expectations of politeness, and made a choice. She chose dignity over compliance, truth over decorum, herself over the show. And in that moment, Petula Clark reminded everyone watching of a truth we often forget. We teach people how to treat us. We have the power to remove ourselves from situations that diminish us. Grace is not weakness. Kindness is not submission. Professionalism does not require passivity. You can be courteous and still have boundaries. You can be gentle and still refuse to be disrespected. Lorraine Kelly learned that lesson the hard way. She pushed too far, dismissed too casually, underestimated too deeply. She thought she could control the narrative, shape the moment, spark controversy, create the kind of exciting television that gets clipped, shared, and debated. She believed she could poke, prod, and belittle without consequence. But instead of crafting the moment she imagined, she created something entirely different, something that will define her, though not in the way she intended. Not as a fearless interviewer or a truth seeker, but as someone who confused cruelty with candor and mistook condescension for honesty. As someone who discovered too late that not everyone will allow themselves to be diminished for the sake of ratings. Petula Clark, with her decades of experience, her enduring voice, her unwavering professionalism, added something new to her already remarkable legacy that day. She showed the world how to walk away. She showed everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful word in your vocabulary is enough. She proved that respect is not a luxury, that dignity is not optional, and that your worth is not up for negotiation simply because a camera is rolling. It took 28 seconds. One dismissive comment. One moment of casual disrespect that triggered a walkout now destined to be replayed, analyzed, and remembered long after the episode itself fades into obscurity. But more importantly, it ignited a broader conversation. One about how we treat people, about the value of experience, about the distinction between honest dialogue and senseless cruelty. Petula Clark did not storm out in a fit of anger, though she had every right to be outraged. She left with composure, clarity, and purpose. She stated her truth, stood her ground, and then removed herself from the situation. And in doing so, she gave everyone watching a kind of permission. Permission to say no. Permission to demand better. Permission to choose themselves when someone else tries to reduce them. Because that is the real story, not the spectacle of a celebrity walking off a set, but the deeper truth beneath it, that respect matters, that dignity matters, that how we treat those we perceive as older, quieter, or past their prime, exposes exactly who we are. Lorraine Kelly thought she was conducting an interview. Instead, she delivered a masterclass in what not to do, and Petula Clark, with that quiet, unmistakable power that only true legends possess, offered the world a lesson in self-respect. She showed how to respond when someone attempts to shrink you. You walk away. You lift your head, you remember who you are, and you refuse to let anyone tell you your time has passed. Because your time never passes as long as you refuse to surrender your dignity. Your value never fades as long as you stand firm in your worth. Your significance is never determined by someone else's limited perspective. That is what happened when a legend stepped onto a talk show expecting respect, and left when she didn't receive it. That is what happened in 28 seconds that changed everything. That is what happened when Petula Clark reminded the world that some people, no matter how hard others try, cannot be diminished.